My best friend called me a farmer slave girl. 4 months later, she was sentenced to prison. Have you ever found out that someone you trusted completely had been secretly laughing at you behind your back? Not just a casual friend, not a coworker, your best friend. The person you would have done anything for. Because that's exactly what happened to me. And what started as wedding drama ended with police investigations, stalking, arson, and eventually a prison sentence. But before I tell you how she ended up behind bars, you need to understand just how close we used to be. For nearly 15 years, Vanessa was my best friend. We met when we were teenagers and stayed close through everything. College, bad relationships, career struggles, family problems. Every major moment of my life. If someone had asked me back then who I trusted most outside of my family, I would have said Vanessa without hesitation. So when she got engaged and asked me to be her maid of honor, I felt honored. I genuinely cried when she asked. I thought she had chosen me because I was her closest friend. Looking back now, I think she chose me because she knew I would do all the work. At first, everything seemed normal. Vanessa was excited about her wedding. Maybe a little stressed, maybe a little demanding. But every bride gets stressed, right? At least that's what I kept telling myself. Then the requests started. Can you help me compare venues? Can you organize the guest list? Can you call the florist? Can you redesign the invitations? Can you meet with the caterer? Can you help with decorations? Before long, I wasn't helping plan the wedding. I was planning the wedding. Every detail became my responsibility. The color of the napkins, the table layouts, the invitation fonts, the menu, the flowers, the seating arrangements, everything. I spent months handling problem after problem. I even took days off work just to keep up with Vanessa's demands. At one point, I realized I had spent nearly 200 hours helping with her wedding. 200 hours, completely free, and I didn't complain once. Because I thought that's what best friends do. I thought all this effort would make her happy. I thought she'd appreciate it. I couldn't have been more wrong. One afternoon, we were at a bridal fitting. It should have been a happy day. Everyone was laughing and talking. I stepped away for a moment to grab my purse. That's when I heard Vanessa's voice coming from one of the changing rooms. Normally, I wouldn't have paid attention. But then I heard my name, and everything changed. At first, I thought maybe she was complimenting me, maybe thanking me for everything I'd done. Instead, I heard her laughing. Then I heard words I'll never forget. She said she was embarrassed being seen with me. Embarrassed. She told one of the bridesmaids that people probably assumed I was some underpaid employee running around doing all the wedding work. Then she laughed again and called me a farmer slave girl. I froze. I genuinely thought I'd misheard her. But then she kept talking. She mocked my background. She mocked the fact that I grew up poor. She mocked the very thing she knew I was most insecure about. The thing I'd spent years overcoming. I remember standing there completely numb. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of my lungs. This was Vanessa, my best friend. The woman I'd sacrificed months of my life helping. And apparently this was how she saw me. Not as a friend, not as an equal, as someone beneath her. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to walk into that room and confront her immediately. But another part of me just felt exhausted. I quietly left before she realized I'd heard anything. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the conversation over and over. Maybe she'd been joking. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe there was some explanation. But deep down, I knew the truth. Nobody accidentally says things like that. Those words come from somewhere. And the more I thought about it, the more other memories started making sense. The little comments, the backhanded compliments, the jokes about money. The way she sometimes acted like she was doing me a favor by being my friend. I had ignored all the warning signs. Until now. The next morning, I had a decision to make. I could destroy her wedding. Honestly, it would have been easy. I knew every vendor, every reservation, every schedule. One phone call could have created chaos. Nobody would have blamed me. Most people would have encouraged it. But I couldn't do that. Not because Vanessa deserved kindness, because I deserved better than revenge. So I finished my responsibilities. I made sure everything was ready. Then, the day before the wedding, I sent her a text. I told her I'd overheard what she said. I told her I wasn't angry. I told her I simply didn't think I should attend. Someone who felt that way about me clearly didn't want me there. Then I waited. Hours passed. Nothing. No apology. No explanation. No denial. Nothing. The silence told me everything. The next day, Vanessa got married. And I wasn't there. I spent the day at home trying to convince myself I was okay. Trying to convince myself I hadn't just lost one of the most important friendships of my life. Then 3 days later, something happened that made everything worse. Much worse. I was scrolling through social media when I saw a post from Vanessa. A wedding slideshow. Photo after photo, the decorations, the tables, the flowers, the venue. Every detail I had spent months creating. Then I saw the caption. Feeling so grateful that I planned this entire wedding myself. I stared at my screen. She wasn't just insulting me anymore. She was erasing me. And what happened next would prove that Vanessa wasn't finished with me yet. Not even close. The wedding was over. The nightmare was just beginning. After seeing Vanessa take credit for months of my work, I blocked her on everything. Instagram, Facebook, phone number, everything. As far as I was concerned, she was out of my life forever. And for a while, things were quiet. 3 months passed. I focused on work, spent more time with family, started rebuilding my confidence. I thought the worst was behind me. Then one morning, I backed my car out of the driveway and immediately noticed something felt wrong. The brakes felt soft, not completely gone, just wrong. Most people probably wouldn't have noticed. But a few years earlier, I'd been involved in a serious accident. Ever since then, I was extremely sensitive to anything unusual with my car. So instead of driving to work, I called a mechanic. Best decision of my life. A few hours later, he called me back. His first words made my blood run cold. Someone tampered with your brake line. I just stared at my phone. What? It wasn't an accident, he said. Somebody did this on purpose. Suddenly, my mind went straight to Vanessa. There was only one person outside my family who still had a spare key to my car. Vanessa. The same woman who blamed me for ruining her wedding. The same woman who had publicly erased me from months of work. The same woman who never apologized. I filed a police report immediately. Unfortunately, without security footage or witnesses, there wasn't much they could do. They took notes, asked questions, promised to investigate, but I could tell they weren't treating it as a priority. To them, it sounded like friendship drama. To me, it felt like attempted murder. Over the next week, my anxiety got worse. I changed my apartment locks, installed cameras, started checking under my car every morning. Then something happened that made me realize I wasn't being paranoid. I was grocery shopping when I ran into Derek, Vanessa's husband, the man she'd married only a few months earlier. He looked exhausted, almost nervous. After a few minutes of awkward small talk, I mentioned my brakes. His reaction shocked me. He went completely pale. Jennifer, be careful. Those 3 words hit me hard. Why? He looked around before lowering his voice. Vanessa hasn't been acting like herself lately. What do you mean? She's obsessed with you. I felt a chill run through my body. According to Derek, Vanessa talked about me constantly. She blamed me for everything. The wedding, the stress, the embarrassment, everything. And apparently it was getting worse. Much worse. That conversation rattled me, but things were about to get even stranger. A few days later, I received a text message from an unknown number. The message contained only one sentence. You should have just shown up to the wedding. Nothing else. No explanation. No signature. Just that. I saved a screenshot, then blocked the number. The next morning, another message arrived from a different number. This one was worse. Now you've made things worse for yourself. I knew exactly who it was, but I couldn't prove it, And that was the problem. Every new incident felt connected. But I still didn't have enough evidence. Then my life took another devastating hit. I received an alert from my credit card company. Someone was attempting to open multiple credit cards in my name, using my social security number, using my address, using my personal information. Somebody was trying to steal my identity, and there was only one person who knew enough about my life to do it: Vanessa. But what happened next made the fake credit card seem minor, because soon I realized she wasn't just trying to ruin my finances. She was watching me, and I was about to catch her doing it. The stalking, the arson, and the evidence that destroyed her. A few weeks later, I went on a date. Nothing serious, just dinner with a guy named Robert. He was kind, funny, normal. Honestly, after everything I'd been dealing with, normal felt amazing. For a couple hours, I forgot about Vanessa, forgot about the threats, forgot about the brake line, forgot about the anxiety. Then we left the restaurant, and I saw her, standing across the street, watching us. Vanessa. She wasn't walking, she wasn't shopping, she wasn't waiting for someone. She was staring directly at me. Then the moment she realized I'd seen her, she turned and disappeared into the crowd. The rest of the night was ruined. I couldn't stop looking over my shoulder. And the next morning, I woke up to another anonymous text. "He isn't good enough for you." My stomach dropped. She had been watching. There was no doubt anymore. I decided it was time to confront her. I went directly to her office. I walked into her real estate agency, asked to see her. And a few minutes later, we were sitting face to face. The conversation was worse than I imagined. Vanessa didn't apologize. She didn't deny insulting me. She didn't show remorse. Instead, she doubled down. She mocked my upbringing, mocked my finances, mocked my entire life. Then she smirked and said something I'll never forget. "It's not my fault you grew up poor." At that moment, I realized something terrifying. The woman sitting across from me wasn't my former best friend. That person was gone. This was someone else. Someone cruel, someone bitter, someone dangerous. I demanded my spare key back, told her to stay away from me, told her I was collecting evidence. For the first time, I saw a flash of concern in her eyes. Only for a second. Then it disappeared. A few days later, I received an envelope. Inside was my spare key and a note. 3 words. "This isn't over." I wish that had been the end. It wasn't, because things escalated dramatically. A few nights later, my bank account was emptied. Almost every dollar gone. Someone had withdrawn the money in person, using fake identification, using information only Vanessa would know. This time, the bank launched a fraud investigation. Police became involved. Detectives started asking questions. Then everything finally started falling apart for Vanessa. Derek called me, and what he showed me changed everything. He had found messages on Vanessa's laptop, messages discussing me, messages about my breaks, messages about teaching me a lesson, messages proving this wasn't random. This was planned, systematic, obsessive. The police now had evidence, real evidence, but before they could arrest her, Vanessa made one final mistake, and it nearly cost me my life. One night, I woke up smelling smoke. I ran into my living room. A fire was burning near my front door. Someone had pushed burning material under the entrance. If I'd slept a little longer, the entire apartment could have gone up in flames. After firefighters put it out, investigators found a partially burned note. The message said, "Next time you won't wake up." That was it. The police immediately classified the incident as arson. Now they weren't investigating harassment. They were investigating attempted murder. Within hours, detectives brought Vanessa in for questioning. Soon after, surveillance footage linked her to the bank fraud. Search warrants were approved, more evidence surfaced, and everything she had built began collapsing. Her brokerage suspended her. The Realtor of the Year nomination disappeared. Local news picked up the story. Her social media accounts vanished. Then Derek filed for divorce. Finally, prosecutors offered a plea deal. Vanessa accepted. Instead of risking a trial, she pleaded guilty to multiple felony charges. The judge sentenced her to prison, just like that. 15 years of friendship ended in a courtroom. You'd think I felt victorious. Honestly, I mostly felt relieved. The fear was gone. The stalking was over. The nightmare had finally ended. 6 months later, life looked completely different. I received a promotion. My relationship with Robert became serious. I felt safe again. And for the first time in years, I stopped worrying about proving myself to people. Because Vanessa taught me something important. Sometimes the people closest to you don't actually value you. They value what you can do for them. And the moment you stop serving their needs, they reveal who they really are. The last thing I ever heard about Vanessa came from a mutual friend. Apparently, she asked about me. Wanted to know if I was still talking about her. The answer was simple. No. Because she wasn't part of my future anymore. She was just a lesson from my past, and some lessons are worth leaving behind forever.